Hello everyone, this is Rui PCB, your trusted PCB partner. Today, continuing from the previous episode, we'll keep introducing how to use hierarchical schematic design in KiCad. In the last episode, we already talked about how to create a new sub-schematic. So let's continue. In the last episode, we created a completely new one. The label was new, and the file was new as well. It will generate a new file and add it here. You can also assign the same file name to multiple schematic pages. A schematic file can be used multiple times within a single project, and the circuit drawn in the schematic will be instantiated each time it is used. That means you don't need to copy it yourself. The software will automatically create a copy for you. Any edits made in any instance will be reflected in all other instances. This approach has both advantages and disadvantages. For example, let's say we have a module, let's use a PCIe as an example. We connect this module multiple times. When we recreate this module, any modification made to any instance will also be reflected in all the others. The advantage is that if you are reusing an identical circuit, you only need to modify it once. For example, if it is reused 10 times, you still only need to make the change once. The downside is if you don't want all of them to be modified, identically, if you only want the first one changed and the other 9 to remain the same, then you'll need to make a copy yourself and use a different file name. This is something to pay attention to during the design process. Schematic files can also be shared across multiple projects, allowing for design reuse between different projects. However, due to concerns about path portability and the risk of unintentionally altering other projects when editing shared schematics, this approach is not recommended. Generally, if you need to reuse designs across multiple projects, it's better to copy the schematic file into each respective project rather than having everyone share the same file. Otherwise, if you modify the schematic file, it could affect other projects. Now, let's see how to create such a file. Press S and you can create a new one. For example, this particular time, I am currently using PCIe 2, specifically PCIe 2, and I want to effectively reuse the existing file. You can easily identify it by its distinct file name, which is clearly labeled as PCIe. We simply select it directly. If you were to type it in manually, it's quite easy to make a mistake. So, we precisely locate the file here, carefully select it, and then click the Open button. Click OK, and then for the path, we still choose to use a relative path. It will then remind you that this file already exists. Remember, in the previous episode, when we created a file that didn't exist, there was no prompt. Now, it tells you that this is an existing file and reminds you again, just click OK. At this point, you also notice a difference. The one we created doesn't have any pins, while this one has an interface. Since we don't have an interface, we need to take one more step, which is to synchronize the interface. Click here to synchronize. Then it will open up, and there are many files listed here. We need to find the file that corresponds to ours. Look for the one with the exclamation mark or question mark, that's our file. Then click Add Net Label, and that's it. We can choose where we want to place it, and then close the window. Now, as you can see, the new one we created is already the same as the original one. We also have this network available for connection. For example, if we connect to the same spot, this kind of reuse works perfectly. If we have multiple instances, we can just reuse it as many times as needed. Next, let's take another look. We just mentioned flat design. We've seen this file in the previous episode as well. This file is actually an example of flat file design. when designing, I found that one page wasn't enough to fit all the components. There were just too many. But I had only a few diagrams and I didn't want to use hierarchical design because it felt too complicated. However, Kik doesn't support flat design, so what should we do? Just like this, I simply draw a subdiagram right here. Then I directly generate a subdiagram and draw within it, just like these two here. And when drawing, I use global nets for all connections because there are only 2 pages, not too many, and I can clearly remember which global nets are which. This way, I don't need to pay attention to the contents of the top level directory, since I won't be synchronizing pins or making connections between them. It's just a placeholder. This way, you can achieve a truly flat design. Alright, that's all for today's content. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel for more content. Thank you everyone.